What's up, guys? Welcome to the Talking Pigskin Week 17 edition. As always, I'm your host, Kishwar, and here we are, the final week of the regular season of the 2017 NFL season. It flew by. It was not so dramatic as we are used to the previous years. It was a little uneventful, a lot more off the field stories than on the field. But, here we are. The playoffs sure looks to be promising with a few spots up for grabs this weekend. Definitely looking forward to it. But I want to give you a brief recap of the Jets this year. They for sure exceeded my expectations. They already got to their 5 wins that they got previous year with a much better team. So definitely very shocked and pleased. I hope Todd Bowles comes back. I'm not sure if the Jets front office is sold on him or not, but we'll figure that out pretty soon. So we'll see what happens. I'm really happy with all the development the young Jets team had. Josh McCown was a very pleasant surprise for us. Definitely love this quarterbacking, and hopefully he'll come back and mentor these young players more in 2018 season. But with all that being said, we have no Thursday or Sunday night games this week. All games will be at the 1 o'clock and the 4 o'clock hour on New Year's Eve. Now, the NFL decided not to put any primetime game this week just to keep all the playoff implications going on at the same time so the other teams aren't sure of what's going on and what's going to impact them in the playoffs, which I think is a brilliant idea. I think this will do a great service for the NFL, especially with New Year's Eve that night. A lot of people will be out, so Sunday night ratings might get a little hit, so I'm sure NBC can now roll their New Year's Eve programming, so that would be great for them. So let's start with the first game on Sunday, 1 o'clock hour. Mind you, this is the first time I can think of that the 4 o'clock window has 8 games. That's definitely a first time for me. So let's start with the 1 o'clock games first. And the first game we have is the New York Jets taking on the New England Patriots. Now, on paper, the Pats are 15.5 favorite. This game is at Foxborough, so maybe they might be able to win by double digits, but not by 15. The Jets always find a way to play these guys tough. With Bryce Petty at the starting quarterback position, this team isn't very competitive, as you clearly saw last week against the Chargers. The defense played very well again. To hold Phillip Rivers under 3 touchdowns is a very hard task to do, so very pleased with their play. But as for offense, they can't get anything going. Tom Brady and that New England offense has been unstoppable all year long, and I expect that to continue moving into this Sunday, even though they just need to secure the win for their home field advantage. I think by fourth quarter, all their stars will come off the bench. We'll go to the bench, sorry. With the addition of James Harrison, I think that's brilliant on the New England's part. I think they're poised for another Super Bowl run, and I think they will probably get there, barring any setback. Next game, we have the Green Bay Packers taking on the Detroit Lions. Very disappointing season for the Green Bay fans, only because Aaron Rodgers was not healthy for a majority of the year. Brett Hundley couldn't get the job done. They actually had a very miserable performance last Saturday night against the Vikings at home. Getting shut out at home at Lambeau, it's got to be embarrassing. So hopefully they'll bounce back at Detroit. But Matthew Stafford, they expected him to pull through against the Bengals to keep the Lions' playoff hopes alive. Unfortunately, he couldn't pull that off. Sad to see him not make the playoffs again, but that's the Lions season in a nutshell. They're almost there. They're just not there yet. But I do expect the Lions to win this game. Moving on to the Texans at the Colts. Texans, I don't even know who's going to be their quarterback. I don't know if it's TJ Yates or Tom Savage or some guy named Heineke. I tuned into the game for a little bit on Christmas Day, and I saw this new guy play quarterback, played a snap, and I would just never heard of him. So I don't know what they're doing at the quarterback. The Texans are done. The Colts actually played pretty good with Jacoby Brissett. They're not great, but he can move the ball up and down the field, which is pretty good for them. Defense has to play solid, and I think at home they can pull it off. Moving on to Chicago Bears and Minnesota Vikings. Not sure if Case Keenum will get the start. Maybe he will just start and let Teddy Bridgewater finish the game in second half. The Viking defense can rest up because the Eagles already clinched home field advantage. So Vikings will have number 2 seed locked going into Sunday. As for the Bears, this is Mitchell Trubisky's first season. I would say he was average. I expect him to go into Minnesota and play a little better against the Minnesota defense, who are going to rest most of their starters. So hopefully he'll get some good things going for him. But I'm still not going to pick him over the Vikings, as this has been one of the best seasons I can think of from Minnesota. Moving on to the Washington Redskins taking on the New York Giants. A tumultuous season for the Giants will finally come to an end with their 14th loss. I think this is the highest amount of losses in this franchise history. I don't see them winning this game. I think Kirk Cousins, which this could very well be his final game as a Redskin, will go out on top. Maybe the Redskins will franchise tag him again this coming offseason. I hope not. I hope the New York Jets actually make a splash this offseason and get him to New York, but we'll see what that happens. But I think the Redskins will easily take care of Giants, even though the Giants are at home. Moving on to the Dallas Cowboys and Philadelphia Eagles. What a letdown. Again, the Dallas Cowboys had everything lined up for them and they blew it. Dak Prescott had Zeke back and just couldn't get anything going on offense. This team needs wholesale changes. This team has been mediocre for far too long, and to be known as America's team, these guys haven't lived up to the hype. So they have to do something on the front office and the coaching staff to make a spark and get this team going in the right direction. Not sure if Des Bryant comes back, maybe a cap casualty, who knows. As for the Eagles, got nothing to play for. Clinched home field on Monday night against the Raiders. With a shaky game for Nick Foles, I'm sure he's going to need all the reps going into the playoffs, so I don't expect him to sit, but I expect the rest of the starters and the defense to take some time off and be well rested for the playoffs. But I'm going to pick the Cowboys on the road to beat this team. Moving on to the Cleveland Browns taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh is still in play for the first seed in the AFC. They have to beat the Browns and hope for the Pats losing against the Jets. They will easily take care of business against the Browns. Browns will be 0-16. Second time in modern history that I can think of, because Detroit Lions had won 0-16. I believe it was an 0-8 season. So this is nothing new to me. The Browns are just horrible. I'm not sure if Hugh Jackson comes back. 2 seasons combined, he has a 1-32 record, or 1-31. Sorry, that's pretty horrific. I'm not sure what his coaching future looks like, but the Browns are just abysmal, and it continues again. Moving on to the 4 o'clock games, and the first game we have is the Carolina Panthers taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Panthers clinched playoffs already. They're still in play for the NFC South crown. However, the Falcons, this is a do-or-die must-win situation for them. If they don't win and the Seattle Seahawks win their game against the Cardinals, the Falcons will be out of the playoffs. So they have to win, and if they don't win, they have to hope for Seattle to lose. I don't see the Panthers putting in much effort here because I believe Cam Newton feels pretty good about just clinching playoff, and I'm not sure if he wants a home game that badly. And I believe the Falcons will step up and rise up for once and actually claim the 6th seed by beating the Panthers. I think Matt Ryan and Julio Jones will step it up. It's a big game for them, and the big-time players need to step it up. Moving on to the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Baltimore Ravens. I think Ravens will take care of business at home and clinch the playoff spot. The Ravens will be making noise in the playoffs, mark my words. This team, they might be mediocre in regular season, but once they get to playoffs, Joe Flacco turns elite all of a sudden, and Terrell Suggs still is playing last time I checked with Baltimore defense. This is the only team I give a shot to go to Foxborough and upset the Patriots, so I'm going to be heavily rooting for the Ravens to take down the Bengals and move on. Bengals, I'm not shocked by their season this year. Before the season started, I predicted this will be a really bad season because of that O-line, and sure enough, they'll finish 6-10 most likely. And they just got to show up their offensive line next year, and not sure if Dalton will be the answer. Then we have Buffalo Bills taking on the Miami Dolphins. Upset alert! I'm going to take the Dolphins to win at home. I think Jay Cutler will win this game at home against the Bills, who are going to fight for their playoff lives, but I just don't think they'll live up to it. This is too big of a stage for the Buffalo Bills to be in, and I think they're going to melt. Tyrod Taylor, not sure if he will come back to the Bills, but this is probably it for him. LaShawn McCoy had a great season once again, but the Buffalo Bills, there's just something about that team. They just cannot show up at big games. The Dolphins, with Jay Cutler, will probably finish 7-9. This was a year they thought they would make the playoffs, but Cutler, being Cutler, showed us why he should never be in an NFL uniform going forward. So hopefully the Dolphins will get Tannehill back and continue his career from then on. Moving on to Saints and Buccaneers, I'll also pick the Saints as a lock this week. Jameis Winston had a little meltdown last week at the end of the game. Not sure what that was about. Granted, he thought he didn't fumble the ball, but I thought it was a clear fumble. The Saints coming off a big win. They could easily clinch the division by taking on the Buccaneers. They all, just like the Panthers, they also have a playoff berth clinch, so they won't go as hard. But knowing Drew Brees, he will want to get that home field advantage and have a game at the Superdome where it's almost impossible to beat them. So I'm going to pick the Saints to easily beat the Buccaneers. Another disappointing year for Buccaneers. After all the promising headlines in the preseason, it just fell all short for them. So hopefully they'll turn it around. Moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars, taking on the Tennessee Titans. The Jaguars, probably the surprise of the NFL season this year. Definitely got to feel good for that defense. Even though Jimmy Garoppolo, which I will get to when I get to the 49ers game, shredded that defense. Not sure what happened there. But the Jaguars will be poised to win this game on the road against the Titans to keep the division rival off the playoffs, and I think they will get it done. I think Marcus Mariota and that offense still needs some much more time to click. Not sure what happened towards the end of the year. They were rolling along just fine, and then the last few weeks they just fell apart. And I don't see them bouncing back from that. So Jacksonville will win on the road. Moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs, taking on the Broncos. The Chiefs clinched, I think, almost everything they can. They will have the 4th seed. Alex Smith will be benched for this game for a playoff, so he can get some rest going towards the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes will be at the helm. They'll be taking on the Broncos team that will have Paxton Lynch as a starter. I think this will be a very boring game because neither team will try as hard. But I'm going to give the Chiefs the edge only because they're going to go to the playoffs, and they would like to go in a high note. Moving on to the Raiders taking on the Chargers. The Chargers has everything to fight for here. They need to win and hope for the Tennessee Titans to lose. And I believe that's exactly what's going to happen. I think Phillip Rivers is one of the best quarterbacks of our time, and we need to appreciate him a little more. And hopefully he can make the playoffs. Can you imagine Flacco and Rivers as the wild cards? No other AFC team will want to see that. That's going to be very interesting playoffs to watch. I know we all talk about NFC and how competitive it is, but if you put Flacco and Rivers in the AFC wild cards and let them go against all Big Ben and Tom Brady, they can make noise. So I'll be very interested in to see what happens there. Moving on to, before I move on, I just want to quickly touch on the Raiders. Disappointing, and Derek Carr, that little injury he had, probably set them back. We had high hopes for them. I actually thought they would make the AFC divisional round playoffs this year, but unfortunately it didn't work out for them. But hopefully next year they'll turn it around. Moving on to the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams have clinched almost everything, so they will probably be resting Todd Gurley, Jared Goff, and the rest of that awesome starting offense. This has been another great season, just like the Jaguars on AFC. I think Rams were the surprise on the NFC, and I loved how Jared Goff and Sean McVay played this. Sean McVay's use of Jared Goff was amazing this entire year. Loved every second of that Rams offense. As for San Francisco 49ers, great news, Niners fans. Jimmy Garoppolo is the answer. 4 straight wins going into LA to take on a very highly talented team. I think he will take those Rams down as well, only because Rams starters will not be playing much. And I think Jimmy Garoppolo will continue his high note and make it 6 in a row going into next year. And I think the Niners will be great moving forward. And the final game we have is the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks need to win and hope for the Falcons to lose. And that is highly unlikely because I'm picking the Falcons to rise up and win this game. So hopefully they'll be able to take care of business at home. The Seahawks, even though they have an easy opponent in the Cardinals, I'm not even sure who's the starting quarterback of the Cardinals at this point. If there is Drew Stanton or if it's Blaine Gabbert, who knows? Carson Palmer being out, this team went in a disarray, and it just never recovered from that. Cardinals will probably finish at 7-9, and Seahawks will win, but unfortunately will miss the playoffs with all those injuries that mounted on them. So there you have it. Lock of the week is definitely the New Orleans Saints, and the upset alert is the Miami Dolphins. Shocker, a Jet fan should never pick the Miami Dolphins, but I am because that's the easiest thing I can think of right now. So with that all being said, this has been a great season. Don't worry, I'm still going to be here for the playoffs, but another year in the books for me. This is the second year I've done these videos. I really appreciate the support from all of you. Hope you keep liking this, subscribing it, commenting on it, pass it down, whatever you can. Anything is appreciated on my end. So please continue watching. And I will definitely see you guys next week for AFC and NFC wildcard rounds. But until then, Happy New Year's to all.